Hello, everyone. Am I audible? I don't understand what these people do. And one more thing is there. If you will see here, it shows only 8 to 9, but usually this class is for 2 hours. So just allow me a second. This I just saw. So let me speak to the iNeuron team. Yeah, so class, I'm back and I'll be sharing the notes link. But before that, let me just tell you what all conversation I had with the team. Firstly, they said for the number of hours that it will get auto updated to 2 hours. And they said that webinar option, they can only provide the webinar option in the class. And for that, Zoom itself has closed the option of chat. So we only have the option of Q&A. They said meeting option, they cannot have it for our class. Because in such a scenario, we will not have control and everybody can unmute and can speak. And I know like that I have observed in other platforms, like for the other platforms, that learners speak anytime and it irritates even me as well. So that's what. All right. And I'll share the link once again. Guys, everyone, just bookmark it. Even though I share a notes link with the iNeuron team after the class, but still it's good to have this link bookmarked. So how are you all? Are you enjoying learning? Like Before that, we were doing OOPS, but then we started with the design principles. So are you able to understand it? And did you get any chance to go through your own project code or your own office code? And did you try to, just find out, is it in accordance with that, with those principles or not? Like, any chance? That's okay. D, I will cover again tomorrow, today, because we didn't cover it completely last time, right? So if you people want any doubt, like if you people want any revision or any doubts, if you have on SOLI, that you can let me know. D, I'm anyway, like we didn't complete it last time, right? So we will anyway do it today. Any questions, anyone? In the previous class, we covered, like we actually covered, I think L, I, and we even started D. While covering it, I gave you people one example. We couldn't do that code because of the time constraint, but I asked you people to go, like, to just give it a try. Anyone who tried out? Yes. So hello everyone. Those who are new here, you have to put your questions in the Q&A only, because these classes are scheduled as a webinar. So you will not have the option of using the chat box, but for the notes and all, you can go ahead and use the link. This is the link for the notes. And since you have already, like, since today only you have joined, so I'll quickly tell you what and all things we have done so far. In the initial classes, we were having a refresher session on all the OOPS concepts, which we will be requiring as a part of this program. After that, we started with our, like, low level design. When we talk about our low level design, like firstly, when we talk about a system design, it is of two types: your low level design and high level design. When we talk about your low level design, then again, it majorly comprises two things. First is your design principles, second is your design patterns. Design principles, we have almost covered. Only one part is left that I'm starting now. Like we covered it partially in the previous class. After that, we will be doing our design patterns. After that, we will be covering some of the case studies on your low level design, and then we will be starting with our high level design. And I have already like shared the notes link with you. So since you didn't join earlier, I will request you to just take out some time, go through the recordings, go through the notes, so that you are also on the same page. All right. Oh, that is great. So if you people have any questions, you can just put in here. I am doing TYBSCCS. Our college gave us a project. This is my first project. Can you guide me? So Deepti, as a part of your project, like, this is something which I'm telling you all, those people who are a student. So, for the working professional, like I'll tell you how the interview process happens. So firstly, there, let us say two candidates are there. You know already some part and the other person do not, like, let us say some questions are there. I'll tell you in that perspective that two candidates are there. We asked five questions each and both performed equally. Then how are we going to pick one candidate out of those two? We will be looking into the additional things, and then your projects, your open source contribution comes into the picture. So if you have done something, that is going to add a value, but if you have not done something, you really need to think about it. So even if this is a part of your college project, I'll say be little what to say, serious about it, because this is something which is going to help you in a longer run. Now, when it comes about making a project, so I'm just telling you about how, like, at least I have seen quite a lot of people following the trend. So they mostly go with the projects like hospital management, employee management, student management, and so on, library management and all. I'll advise you not to go ahead with these projects, because even if you have mentioned such a thing on your resume, it is not going to add any weightage. The best example which you can follow is the clone. Like, you can go ahead with the clones of already running websites and go ahead with some of the common, like, I'll give you some examples. You can go ahead and make a clone of, like, I'll tell you about, like, in Microsoft, we keep on conducting a lot of internships for the college students. So last year, we asked the people to go ahead and create the clone of Teams app. So you must have seen we have a chatting application Teams in Microsoft. So that particular one, we asked the learners to replicate. But considering we will have only, I think with them, we had only 6 weeks. So with 6 weeks, considering they are also going to be college people, not a working professional. So we gave them only two options. First one was to enable chat. Second one was to have the video call. Only these two things plus something innovative, if you can bring it up, that was holding a more like more marks for such a student. So if you are going ahead with the clone of already running websites, it is going to add a weightage. At that time, what and all you can prefer, some people make the clone of Netflix, some people go and make the clone of Airbnb, some people go and make the clone of Book My Show. So, I even interact with the senior people here in the Microsoft. So we have two types of mentoringship which happens in our organization. One happens at the internal level and one happens at the external level. Means we will be taking mentors from the different colleges for the internships. And one happens which we can use for our own internal development. So I interacted with the senior people in my organization and I was asking them that you tell me what and all things I should be doing, because right now I am at SDE2. Obviously, we have a lot of scope of improvement and I want to be promoted to SDE3. Then he gave me the option of make the clone of Book My Show. So you can consider if that person is literally like one of the knowledgeable person in Microsoft. So if that person is saying clone of Book My Show, so you can consider it is actually considered as a very good option. And after listening to that advice from him, like he actually advised me two things. He said, this lead code problems people solve only to crack interviews. These problems are not going to be helpful once you enter the organization. What is going to be helpful once you enter the organization? That is going to be your system design. So he suggested me that you go through this part, that part, like some parts he explained me. Along with that, he said that you go and make the clone of Book My Show in your free time. So I will give you the same advice. If you have the time, go ahead and make a clone for the same. All right. Are you asking Kundan about the most asked interview question? And Rajiv, chat is going to be disabled because that is what Zoom people have done. So these are the webinars. For the webinars, they have disabled the chat option. let's start. So what I spoke in the previous class, I spoke about dependency inversion principle. So what it says that you are going to be having some higher classes and you are going to be having some lower classes. So it says that higher classes should not directly depend upon your lower level classes. And I even gave you one example that, let's say we have a CEO of the company. If it is a huge company, not talking about a startup because their employee count is going to be lesser. If it is a huge company with thousands of employees, CEO is not, like, even if he will try, he cannot interact with every employee. So what he will do, he will ask the people who are below to him that you communicate this message to the people. Like, some things are not going to be there on the form of your email. Something has to pass on in that manner. So how it will get passed on? CEO will be giving that information to the VP. VP is going to give that information to director. Director is going to give that information to your manager, and manager is going to talk to you. So manager can still talk to 10 people, 20 people, 30 people, but a CEO cannot talk to millions of people. Not million, thousands. Like, exactly, I don't know the count. So if you will see what is happening there, if you are not getting a chance to talk to your CEO, if CEO is not getting a chance to know about you, do you both know each other? No, right? So that is what we called as abstraction, that we are not going to be depending upon the lower level classes. We are not going to be depending upon the higher level classes, but on which we are going to be depending upon the level of abstraction which we will be doing at that particular time. So that is what is your dependency inversion principle. So for that particular one, I even gave you the example of making a movie. So if somebody wants to make a movie, what and all are going to be involved there? So we will be having some class for your producer, for your director, actor, actress. All right. Then I told you that, let us say, like, I actually gave you a blank representation for your class. This particular one we are going to be discussing today in detail. But if you will go ahead and understand what is happening here, if you will see, we are not following our open close principle. So what actually your design principle says, it says that if you are trying to implement one, always make sure that you are not violating the another one. You should always go ahead and try to implement all the ones which you have. So you should always be making your classes loosely coupled. It should not be tightly coupled. So that is what should always be there. Yeah, no theory I gave. So today, first of all, I will be telling you about some of the theory for the same. And after providing the theory, I will be just telling you more about it. Okay. Yes, Kundan, it is actually most asked interview question. Did you, like, do you people have notes for the previous class? Because I believe I didn't share it with the Eneuron team. I wanted to. Why did I miss? I must have missed. Anyway, I'll share today. So we are learning here. One second. Yeah. Dependency inversion principle, DIP. This is the last principle of your solid. Okay. So I'll just write about it. Your dependency inversion principle states that, like whatever I have discussed, I'm just writing it down so that you can refer the notes for the later purpose. That it should not be depending upon your high level modules or the classes which you have. Should not depend upon low level and on what it should be depending upon. They both should be depending upon level of abstraction. So both should level of abstractions. A high level module class that has a dependency on, and like after writing down all this theory, we will be looking into the implementation for the same. So a high level module class that has a dependency on the low level modules, classes, or some other class and knows a lot about other classes it interacts. So if you will like, that is what I like, I was referring by the tight coupling, that if you have lots of classes and if they are depending upon each other, so in such a scenario, what is going to be happening, that you have tight coupling, and we do not actually support tight coupling. Your classes should be loosely coupled. So it interacts with, is called as said to be tightly coupled. All right. Also, when you will have lots of classes and if they know what kind of design you are going to be having in your class, how you are going to be implementing the other class, in such a case, it is going to be having a bigger risk. And what that bigger risk is going to be there, that it is going to be breaking the other class. So if you have, like I was mentioning, that if you're going to be having one class, like two classes which are tightly coupled, if you will be making change at one place, what will happen, that change is going to be impacting the another one. So we should always be making changes in a way that it is not impacting the previous implementation. It should be open for extension but closed for modification. So I'll write, when a class knows explicitly about the design and implementation of the other class, it raises the risk that changes to one class will break the other class. So we must keep these high level and low level modules classes loosely coupled. As much as we can. And how we can achieve it? By performing abstraction. So to do that, we need to make both of them dependent upon abstractions instead of knowing each other. So what I'm just saying that if you have some high level modules, so that should not be dependent upon your low level modules, and they both should be depending upon the abstraction, and abstraction should not be dependent upon the details. Details should be dependent upon abstraction. All right. So in order to explain this particular thing better, let's start with the same example which we covered in our previous class. And that particular one was if you want to make a movie. So what and all you will be taking care of? Just mentioning the classes. So you will be needing a producer. You will be needing a director. You will be needing a actor and a actress. So all these you will be needing in order to create a movie. All right. Now in this particular one, like if you will see what we will be doing in such a scenario, we will go ahead and make a class for the same. So let's go ahead and start the implementation. So let's go and create a class and let's have a class for your director. So inside this, I will just go ahead and have one method. And that method, I can name it as public void hire director. All right. Now, similarly, we are going to be creating the other classes as well. I'll just copy paste the code in order to save the time. Producer. Actress. So if you will see what we have done, whatever requirements we had, based upon that, we have went ahead and created the classes for the same. Now, if you will see, let us say today we have all these people, right? Tomorrow, if you want to have one more person, let us say your choreographer. So in such a case, it is not going to be working for us. Why? Because if you will see what it is doing, it is just depending upon each other. So if you want to break down that, what we can do in order to improve on it, so we can just go ahead and create something like, let us say, I'm creating one interface, and that interface I'm going to be naming as movie maker only, because I'm not able to think of any other name. In this interface, what I will be doing, I'm just going to be providing something as public void hire people. So what I have actually done, instead of doing it at all of the levels, I went ahead and I created one interface. Now, whatsoever we have, what I will be doing, I'll have to just go ahead and implement the same. So the earlier one was not implementing it properly, but with the help of this, we will be achieving it. So instead of having separate methods, now we will have the same one. So I'm just going to be overriding, and I will be providing the information for the same. And if you remember how we achieved your open closed one, the same way we are going to be dealing here as well. So by doing that, we will be enabling the flexibility in order to break the dependency on each other. So if tomorrow, if you want to go ahead and add any other person, you will be able to add directly without modifying the other classes. And here we can have it. Now, when the time we will be calling it out, what we will be doing, instead of calling these classes directly, I'll create one class. Let's say that is movie maker class. And now with the help of this movie maker, we are going to be calling all the hiring process. So I can just go ahead and create a method here, which can be something like public void start movie hiring something. Okay. So inside this, what I will be doing, I'm also going to be taking one instance here. So iMovie Maker. And now based upon this movie maker, I can go ahead and hire the people. Now, when you will come to your main class, you will anyway have to call it out, right? So how you can go ahead and call it out? You will be creating the class. object, new movie maker. And now with the help of this, just go ahead and call your movie maker hiring. And here you can go ahead and pass on the object of anything. So if you're passing it for actor, you will see it working for your actor. It is saying hire actor. If you want to see it for somebody else, just pass that object here. So through this, it is coming here. Now I will be sharing one more thing before, closing this topic. So firstly, let me explain that part as well. So, I'm actually speaking about a lot of low level and high level. So what are those high level and low level? So let me, go ahead and create the UML, which I have used here. So how I have used here. So on the top, I have used a class that is your movie maker. Now what we have done, based upon this class, I have went ahead and created my interface. So that is your iMovie Maker. Now what I am doing, I am creating my various classes, and every class is using this iMovie Maker. So now I have my actor class, I have actress class, I have my producer, I have my director. So I have all of these people here, and what all of them are doing, they all are using this interface. So that is how it is happening here. So if you will see, this is how we have created it here. But now, what is low level, what is high level? So, earlier, what was the case? Everything was like we were not having this iMovie Maker. We were just having these concrete classes, and we were having this iMovie Maker on the top. So if you talk about your high level module, so what is your high level module here? So that particular one is your movie maker. So this one is called as your higher level module. If you have to talk about your lower level modules, so all these are your lower level modules. And if you have to see where are we performing abstraction, so this is where you are performing your abstraction. So now you can understand how you can achieve your, how you are achieving your dependency inversion principle here. When you are trying to achieve it, at the same time, you're also adhering to open close principle. And in this particular one thing which you always have to remember is that abstraction is something which will always come in middle. So if you will see between higher level and lower level, what do we have? Abstraction. That should always be there in the middle, because that is what is actually performing that level of abstraction which we are looking here. Abhinav, is it still a doubt about the higher class? So higher class, you can consider the one who is having all the authority, who is doing your main purpose. So here, who is doing your main purpose? Like, I'll give you one more example, okay? So let me just mirror it again. And I'll not explain that entirely. I'll just explain it to you with the help of some example. And I will be putting the code as well for the same here. Another example. So let's talk about calculator. So if you know, a calculator is something which is going to be performing all your operations. So when we talk about your higher level, so what is going to be the higher level for the same? Calculator. And what is going to be your lower level modules? The ones which are performing your add, subtract, division, multiplication, and any other operation. So in that particular case, how are you going to be defining it down? So on the top, you will have your calculator. Then after calculator, you are going to be having your I calculator. And after that, you're going to be having your classes. So let us say we have add, subtract, multiply. We have divide. So let us say these are the classes which we have. So now if you have to see, this calculator is actually using this interface. Like for this calculator only, we have created this interface, and now who and all are using it? All these classes are using it. All right. So here, if you have to talk about your this class, so what is this particular one? So this is your higher level module. If you have to talk about your calculator here, so what is this calculator doing? So this is nothing but your abstraction. And if you have to talk about your lower classes, so what those one are? These are nothing but your lower level modules. So I hope with this example, it must be clear to you like how it is going to be there. Does this make sense? Great. Yeah. You can see your classes now. What dependency on lower class before introducing the interface? So Abhinav, like I'll show you how we were using it. Okay, sorry. How we were using it in the previous, like I didn't write the proper code last time. I just wrote down here. So earlier, how the case was, if you want to use a movie maker, here only you will have to create objects for everything. And with the help of these objects, you will be calling your methods. So if you want to add, let us say, today you have only these 4 people. Tomorrow, if you want to add a new person here, let us say choreographer. So what you will do, you are going to be creating one object here. And in such a case, you will be touching this entire class. But if you will see how we have resolved it, we have resolved it with the help of creating a movie maker class separately. All right. How does it help interface to their open close principle? So Abhinav, if you will see, like I'll actually show it to you now itself, so that it will be clear to you properly that how it is actually helping us in this case. So you can see so far who and all we have: actor, actress, director, and producer, right? So let us say today we have a new requirement of choreographer as well. All right. So now if you are creating a choreographer, you do not have to go ahead and touch all your existing classes. Here only you can go and implement your interface. So you can see anyway, even if you are adding someone new, you will have to add a class for that person, right? So that is what we have done so far. And here, Now you can see if you want to, let us say now you want to hire a choreographer, if you want to call this function. So how you will be doing in the main method where you are calling everyone, there only you can go ahead and call it. So you can see we have not touched anyone. We are just adding it simply here. So you can see this is how you are getting the output here. Can you throw some light on dependency injection in ways it helps with the dependency inversion? A short explanation would help. So Kundan, you know, if some people actually get confused with the dependency injection as well. So, you know, one thing which you will have to understand here is this one you can solve using your dependency injection, but we cannot say that, like, you know, if you have dependency inversion, so that particular one is going to be more about how you're going to be structuring your code. But when it's about your dependency injection, so then it focuses upon how the code functionally will be working. Let me just write it down for you. So it is like dependency injection is nothing but a way to implement your dependency inversion principle. Dependency inversion. We can say focused on how to structure your code. All right. And when we have your dependency injection. In such a scenario, it is going to be focused upon how the code functionally works. Like, you know, we have various ways of injecting dependency. So some people do it with the help of your constructor, some people do it with the help of a method, some people do it with the help of object as well. You can say they are quite similar, Aditya, because, you know, in open close, what we are doing when we have to add a new functionality at that particular time, we are taking, like, you know, implementation wise, it is same, but purpose is different in both of the ways. So when we are talking about your open close principle, in such a scenario, what it is doing, it is taking advantage of interface to add the functionality. Whereas if you talk about here, so instead of making, like, if you will go ahead and see this implementation, the previous one. So what we were doing in this particular scenario, so we were having a class, and that class, like you can say, this is your high level class. And this high level class was directly interacting with your low level classes. So instead of providing that direct connection between these two, what we have done, if you will see here how we have achieved it, we have achieved it with the help of abstraction. So this thing you always have to remember, that abstraction is going to be coming in the middle. It is not going to be on the top or on the lower end. if anyone has to talk, they both have to talk to the abstraction. They cannot talk directly. Okay. If we satisfy DIP, it will cover open close. So Aditya, I just explained it to you with the help of example. Like more or less it is similar. Like even if you will see when we talk about your Liskovs and interface segregation. So they both were also working in the almost same manner, right? Like solution for that particular one was given there. So similarly, like if you talk about Liskovs, so whatever the problem Liskov was happening, how it got resolved with the help of interface segregation. Here also, what is the problem? We do not want to make both of the modules interact directly. So we are putting one layer of abstraction in middle, and that is the point where the both of the principles are actually behaving in the same manner, but use cases for both are different to each other. All right. And I even uploaded the code and all on the Git last week. So usually like we create branches and all, but in that particular one, what I have done, since I already had all the code in a folder, so I went ahead and uploaded the code directly, file by file. And you know, this dependency inversion and Liskov, they both are most commonly asked in your interviews. After this, we'll be taking one short break and then we will be resuming. Today, I'm also planning to start the design patterns. And those people who want to see the code or any of the notes, I'll just share the notebook link as well. I have already shared it already, but I'll share it again. All right. I will share Git link as well. Just allow me a second. It must be logged in. I will post link of the LinkedIn as well. One second. My name is Anjali Sheikh. Those who do not know, I do not know how it is going to be coming here. Since I have logged in from the iNeuron account. All right. So, you know what we will do? Let's take a break for now. And after the break, I will quickly give you the overview about all of these things before winding it up. All right. Since it is already 9, otherwise it becomes too late. So we'll be catching up at 9:15. All right. Yeah, I hope everyone is back from the break. So like you people requested, I'll quickly give you the quick overview about all of the solid principles which we have covered so far. And after that, we'll be starting your design patterns. All right. Yeah. So from yeah, so from here we discussed. Firstly, we discussed about some of the design patterns. Then majorly we have these SWIFE solid principles. So S stands for single responsibility principle. So it says that one class should be doing only one thing. And why we perform it in such a manner? Firstly, so that we can reduce your confusion. Secondly, to make it loosely coupled. And lastly, to make it more specialized. It says that if you have a class, so one class should be having only one actor. It does not mean that one class should be having only one function, but it says that one class should be having only one actor. If you have more than one actor in such a case, what you will do, you are going to be creating a new class for the same. And for your single responsibility, there should be only one reason to make change, irrespective of how many methods do we have. All right. So that is what is your single responsibility principle. Like let us say you have 5 actors. So there will be 5 classes. And why we perform it in such a manner? So I gave you the example that let us say you talk about any application. Obviously, at the same time, one team is going to be working on the UI part, one team is going to be working on the backend part. So if a UI team is making some changes, meanwhile, backend team has to wait. Similarly, if a backend team is making some changes, UI team has to wait. So in order to avoid that waiting time, what we can do, we can just wait for one class to go ahead and perform the implementation. All right. So this is what is your single responsibility design principle. Then the next one which we have is your OS, open close principle, OCP. So it says that if you have any software application, that should be open for enhancements. Like let us say today you have some app in your phone. Let us say you talk about Big Basket. So tomorrow it can have some other feature as well, right? So that is what we say. It should be open for enhancements or any feature addition, but it should be closed for your code changes. So it actually says that if you are adding any of your new code in such a scenario, it should not be breaking your existing one. How we can achieve it? By using interfaces. What we can do, we can avoid changes in your previous implementation. At the same time, we can ensure that we are also enabling the ability to add new features. Then the next one which we have is your Liskov's substitution principle. So when we covered your inheritance, what we covered that inheritance is a like if you have inheritance in such a case, you will be having a is a relationship. Liskov principle said that just having is a is not sufficient. In order to have the inheritance, your parent should have the ability to replace child at all of the places. So what it actually does that, I gave you the example of cat and all, right? So we can have two kinds of cats. So we can have two kinds of functions in our cat. One can be making noise, another one can be drinking milk. Now I can have two types of cats. One can be your mechanical cat, means your toy cat. Another one can be your living cat. So what will happen? Sound both cats can make. But if you talk about your mechanical cat, means your toy cat, that it cannot drink milk. So what I'm trying to explain you here is that if you have any such thing, what you can do, you can break down your interface into two parts and if let us say you want to have some of the functionality which another interface is having. So what you should do, you should go and extend the same. And this is something which you should always be practicing, even if you are working in some organization. Let us say you have the requirement to add a new interface, and that interface you want to use in your new class. Like that new method you are going to be using in your new class. So in such a case, always create a new interface. That is how what will happen. Let us say some already existing classes were there. So you are not forcing them to provide the implementation for the ones which are already there. So that is what you can resolve, and how we are providing the solution for the same. We are providing solution for the same using your I. I is your interface segregation principle. So your I says that instead of having one big fat interface, you should be having small interfaces, and it should be actually having only the relevant information. And I gave you one example of student and employee. So let us say we have two classes, student and employee. Now, what and all we need? Let us say we need two methods. One is to get the details, another one is to get the salary details. Now, getting details is going to be common for both of the classes. But if you talk about getting the salary details, so salary details are going to be there only for the employee. It is not going to be there for your student. If you will have one interface, then even though your student class is not having any implementation for the same, still it will have to provide some functionality. So that is not a right approach. So that is what your interface segregation principle says. Then the last one which we have done today is your dependency inversion principle. It says that your higher classes should not directly depend upon lower level of classes, but it should be depending upon the level of abstraction. So how, like what and all I really want to conclude out of your design principles is that, if you remember, as I said in the beginning, these principles are not the things that you always need to follow. These are, there are, some of the exceptions also to these principles. The main idea here is that you need to be aware of these principles, think about them. If you want to break one of them, make sure that you can justify why, and you should be able to understand why that principle may not be applicable to your situation. So this is like the good habits. Like for a human being, we have lots of good habits, but not everyone follows that good habits, right? So if you are not following some of the habit, you should be able to justify why you are not following it. Similarly, your classes should be able to justify that if you're not following the design principle, why you're not following it there. Does that make sense? Any questions? No questions? Now we will be starting with our design patterns then. Today I will be just giving you the overview about your design patterns. Like I'll just tell you what design patterns are, how you can use it. Remaining part, like I don't think we'll be able to do because it's already 9:25, all right? So, whenever we talk about design, so what your design contributes. So design is actually contributing two things. The first one is your design principles. And the second one is your design patterns. All right. Now, when you talk about your design principles, so what are your design principles? So it is majorly theory, and we do not have any concrete example for the same. So we can say, if you have seen, when we were discussing about it, what we were doing throughout, we were just discussing about the theory part, right? So we can say majorly theory, no concrete example. At the same time, here what we actually focus upon, so our major focus is upon what should we do. All right. Similarly, when we are going to talk about your design patterns, so what your design patterns are going to be, so your design patterns are going to be talking majorly about your implementation. So we can say majorly about implementation. This is where you are going to be talking about the actual world. That so far we were just taking a random examples. Now you will have to see, when you are going to be talking with your actual world, how it is going to be behaving. So in such a scenario, you should be knowing that how it is going to be done. So here we actually focus upon how we should do. All right. So this is what is your, broadly, this is what we have inside your design. All right. So, in many of the interviews, you must have encountered a lot of questions which are related to your interfaces, your abstract classes, delegates, and at the same time, there can be some of the questions which are feature related to object-oriented programming. So that is what is going to be there as a part of your coding interview round. Now, apart from that, like if you talk about your tier 2 and tier 3 companies, along with that only, they're going to be asking you some of the questions which are going to be related with your design pattern. And if you talk about your tier 1 organization, so they're going to be specifically having the rounds on your design patterns. So design pattern solutions are actually evolved from the features of object-oriented programming. So when we talk about your design patterns, here we do not use anything new. It is just like, it is like I have told you how you can write down your code. Now it is like using that code into work. So that is how it is going to be there. Since you already know about your concepts, your object-oriented concepts in this particular one, we are just going to be seeing how you can use them. And also, once you understand the design patterns, it makes you very comfortable in attending your interviews as well as applying these features with confidence in your objects and your, in your projects and your applications. Because like I was mentioning, if you talk about your lead code problems, so your lead code problems are going to be majorly focused upon interview clear part. But when you talk about your system design, so this is something which you will be using even after joining the organization. And, once you are implementing these design patterns in the applications, you will also see that how much better your application is actually going to be becoming. So whenever we follow any of the approach here, what are our major point of areas which we actually target? Design patterns. So, here, what are the major areas which we are going to be covering? That whatever applications which you are building, that should be reliable, that should be scalable, that should be maintainable. So these are the things which, like, whenever you're going to be writing down any of your code, so that code should be aligned with your design patterns. And if you are following that in such a scenario, whatever application you're going to be bringing up with, that is going to be reliable, scalable, and maintainable. When we talk about your design patterns, so what it is, Like, let me actually write down about it. So that is nothing but some of your design level solutions for recurring problems. That we software engineers come across often. What does it mean? Like, one thing is actually clear, that is when you will be writing down code, irrespective of for which company you're going to be writing, what is your module is going to be there. A lot of times you're going to be dealing with a lot of recurring problems and how it can be similar across the different organizations. So let us say your application is like, I'm just giving you two broad examples. So let us say one of your in one organization, let us say you are working for Make My Trip, and your application is making the writing down the code for their own website. At the same time, let us say now you are working for Swiggy. So in the Swiggy as well, let us say now you're working for that website. Now, how the work is going to be similar. So if you will see, a lot of things are going to be similar, like, right? You will have the payment gateways, you will have the option of selecting the city. At the same time, you will have some login page, some sign up page. These are, I'm just talking about from a broader level. I'm not even thinking about what and all components are going to be there. But the thing which you should be seeing, that a lot of problems are actually recurring. Everyone is going to be requiring same types of solutions for their problems. So all that you can go ahead and make it simpler by applying your design patterns there. And also one thing you have to keep in your mind, that whenever we talk about your design patterns, we are not going to be writing some specific code. Means you are not actually having some of the syntax that if I will write it in this form, then it is in accordance with this design pattern or that design pattern. There is no specific syntax. It is just like whatever concepts we have already learned. That was the major reason why I covered all the OOPS principles. All the OOPS concepts, because all that is going to be using here. If you have to talk about your design patterns, so it is nothing but it is a description on how to tackle, like I'm telling you about these problems, right? So it is just going to be telling you about the description on how to tackle these problems and how you can design a solution for the same. So we can say it is like a description on how to tackle these problems and design a solution. All right. And if you are going to be using these design practices, it is going to be considered as a good practice. So even if you're going to be working in the corporate, like I have worked in 2 organizations so far, and in both of the organizations, I have seen that whatever code we write is actually aligning your design patterns. And it is like, what we actually, we were doing it as a part of our previous organization. So we were having some architect. He was telling us that you do it in this way, that way. So at that particular time, it always used to strike my head that how come he is able to tell me this class should be static or this class should be like this or that. But with the advancement, with the experience, you will be able to figure out that if, like I'm saying, you will be having some repetitive problems. So if you will have some repetitive problems, then it will become easier for you to figure out that how you address the problem in the previous scenario. So same things, you can use it here. So that is how you can understand that if you have any of these things, how you can apply design patterns there. And if you will be applying your design patterns in such a case, you will also be providing the higher readability of the final code. Whenever we write down any piece of code, we always write it down with the intention of making it readable for the others. So and why it is actually there, because if you see what is the one thing which I mentioned, if you want to make your code maintainable. So if today you are working on that code, probably tomorrow somebody else will be working upon. So the best advice is to make it as readable as you can in today's date only. So long story short, if you have to talk about the design patterns, what it is, you can say it is the reusable solutions to the problems, whatever we encounter in your day-to-day programming. That is what which you can actually go ahead and tell if somebody is going to be asking you what it is there. So I'll also write it down here. Design patterns are reusable solutions to the problems that we encounter in the day-to-day programming. Or you can, one more thing, like since I'm saying reusable. So if you remember when we were talking about reusability, what is the one thing which I always focus that you are going to be provided with some templates. So you can consider these design patterns as some templates. And if you're going to be applying those templates, you can actually apply that design pattern. So we can say design pattern act as a template which can be applied to the real world programming problems. All right, now let's discuss about the history and evolution, like who actually brought it in the world. So the next one which we have here is history and evolution of design patterns. So, there is one famous book, and that book's name is Elements of Reusable Object-Oriented Software. And who actually brought this book? What is this particular book? Let me now tell you all of that. So there are 4 authors. Those 4 authors are known as Gang of 4. All right. So this is nothing but 4 authors. Who and all those are? So we have Kama, Helm. I am 200, like not 100%, 99% sure these are the names. If there is some spelling mistake or anything, that you can just ignore. All right. So these are the 4 authors. They all brought one book. And these 4 people are also known as Gang of 4. So these people are the ones who brought the concept of design patterns. And in which book they brought? In this particular one, Elements of Reusable Object-Oriented Software. So what these people have done, whatever their book is there, right? So they have divided that book into 2 parts. So the first part is actually explaining you about the pros and cons of object-oriented programming. And the second part is actually describing the evolution of your system design patterns. So Gang of Four, basically what these people did, they worked extensively in the field of computer computation in the area of object-oriented programming. So they found out that almost all applications have repetitive needs. Just now I mentioned like login page, sign up. In the login, like it seems easy, but we put a lot of functionality there, right? So what they have seen that almost all applications are going to be having some repetitive needs. And with their experience, they figured out that if we do few things, that will always work great. And there are going to be certain things, if we will do that, they will always fall back. So, in the terms of artificial intelligence, we call it as learning by experience. It happens not just in the real life, not just in the world of artificial intelligence or in the world of programming. It also happens in the real life. Let us say you're going out somewhere. If you will figure out that that shop is no longer there, next time will you go there? No, right? So that is how it works. If you already know some of the scenario, you can either perform the repetitive work, like let us say you know a shop where you will get a best food, so next time also you will go there and get it from there. So that is the repetitive work. At the same time, if you will know that another shop is not open, so you can avoid doing that. So you know what is going to work great for you. At the same time, you will know what is going to always fall back. So based on their experience together, they all presented a paper on the different design patterns, which we should be following as the standard at the time of designing any application. As the result of their paper, they actually spoke about three things. So they said that in object-oriented programming, the center player is your object. All right. They said that if you are creating if you have the object, you can actually go ahead and perform three things with that. Either you can try to create the object, or you can try to see the behavior of the object. All right. And you can also see how this object goes along with the other objects. So there you are going to be looking into the structure of the object. So these are the three things which you will be seeing there. So based upon this, you can see how your object is created. You can see how your object is going to be behaving. You can see how you can structure the classes in order to provide the communication between them. So we primarily here will be dealing with the situation of creating the object, the situation of behaving with the object, the situation of how the object is going to be structured with the another one. So there are different design patterns that we will be learning here, which will help us and understand how object is created in different types of situations, so that when we are building any application, you should be knowing which one I should go and apply there. All right. Now, based upon these three things, we have actually classified our design patterns. Okay, so total we have 26 design patterns. Gang of Four came up with the three broad categories of your design patterns based upon how your object is going to be there. So types of design patterns. So like I mentioned, your object is going to be revolving around three things: how you're going to be creating it, how you're going to be having a behavior, how you're going to be having the structure. So based upon that, when we talk about your design patterns, so it is also of three types. Your creational design pattern, you have your structural design pattern, and the last one is going to be your behavioral. Now I will be speaking about all of them one by one. Creational design pattern. So, when we talk about the creational, just now we have seen where we are going to be using it in the terms of object creation. So these patterns are designed majorly for your class instantiation. So we can say these patterns are designed for class instantiation. Also, here we can have, like, if you are going to be talking about creation, so that can actually happen at two levels. We have discussed about object. Similarly, you should be having your class creational patterns as well. So we can say they can be either class creation patterns or object creational patterns. Also, when we talk about your creational design pattern, so since you're going to be dealing with the object creation, so at the same time you will also have the control over which object you want to give or which object you want to create out of your own class. So since you're going to be having that control, that flexibility in your hand, that is why these design patterns are actually called as your creational design pattern. So we can say it gives the program more flexibility in deciding which object needs to be created for a given case. All right. Then let's talk about your structural design patterns. I told you how, like, even if you will just go on the word structure. So what structure actually represents, how you're going to be composing a class, right? So when we talk about your structural, and before actually talking about the second design pattern, let me just talk about the different design patterns which actually come in your creational pattern, and we will try to cover most of them as a part of this course. Like, I will be covering all of that which you require from your interview perspective. So types of creational design patterns. So here I'm just telling you names. Later on, we'll be discussing it in detail. So the first one which we have is your singleton pattern. Now, when we talk about your singleton pattern, so this is something which is commonly asked in your interviews. So let us say you have 2 to 5 years of experience in such an interview. 3 or 4 out of 5 interviews are going to be having questions on singleton design patterns. So this is that commonly asked, and this is something which we will be covering in the utmost depth, because like I mentioned, it will be there in most of your interviews. The next one which we have is your factory pattern. Then we have abstract factory. Then we have Hilden pattern. Then we have prototype pattern. And the last one which we have is your object pool pattern. Out of these 6, the top 5 are the ones which people generally ask. I think I missed something. 1 second. Singleton factory. Factory method I have missed. Let me actually move these and put that particular one there. Because in the interviews, they usually ask what is the difference between your factory method, and abstract factory. That is how I remembered we missed one. So factory method. All right. Now let's discuss about your second type of design pattern. And that is your structural design pattern. So like the name suggests, it has to be around the class structure and composition. So we can say these design patterns are designed with regards to a classes structure and composition. All right. Also, in this particular one, whenever we will be writing down any of our code, so our major focus is going to be there upon how you are going to be decoupling interfaces, how you are going to be implementing your classes and the objects. So that is what is going to be the major focus area for this design pattern. So we can say major focus area. Decoupling interfaces. And then implementation of classes and its objects. All right. And what is the major goal of this area is to increase functionality of all the classes. So whatever classes we are going to be having here. So this particular one is going to be seeing that how can we improve the functionality for them. At the same time, it is going to be focusing upon how you can perform it without changing the entire structure for the same. So here you can say about that open closed one only. So you want to add functionality, at the same time you do not want to change the composition. So we can say the main goal of most of these patterns is to increase the functionality of the classes involved without changing much of its composition. All right, now I will be just listing down what and all structural design patterns are. So we have, I'll be extending the class by 5 minutes. I believe it will take 5 minutes. Okay. I'll try to wind it up before that, but just a disclaimer, it may take. So first one is your adapter pattern. Then you have bridge pattern. Then we have composite pattern. Decorator pattern. Facade pattern. Flyweight pattern. And the last one which we have is your proxy pattern. Out of all these patterns, generally people ask a lot of questions on composite. I'm not saying remaining they are not going to be asking, but majorly they ask about composite and adapter. Okay. Now let's quickly discuss about your behavioral as well. So as the name suggests, behavior. So even when we talk about this behavior thing in the terms of humans, so what we say, oh, this person's behavior is not good. What does that mean? This person does not communicate well, right? So similarly, when you're going to be talking about your behavioral design pattern, what is going to be our major area? How your one class is communicating with the another one, and not just with another class, also between your other objects as well. So our area has to be in both of the scenarios. So we can say these patterns are designed depending upon how one class communicates with others, and also between classes and objects. Now I will be listing down the different types of behavioral design patterns. So the ones which we have here are command pattern. Then we have interpreter pattern. Iterator pattern. Mediator pattern. Memento pattern. Observer pattern. Out of this, observer pattern is something which is most commonly asked in the interviews. Observer, another one is your state pattern. These are the two which are generally asked in the interviews. State pattern, Strategy pattern. Template pattern. Visitor pattern. Chain of responsibility pattern. And the last one, which we have is your null object pattern. So these are the various design patterns which we are having as a part of your design patterns. Any questions, anything if you people have based upon this? So no, it's not a weird question, Rajiv. So it is actually, you know, when you talk about your designing, so it is actually comes in your two, like if you remember in the beginning of the class, I actually discussed about the different phases which involve as a part of your application, like when you have to create any of the application, but and all are going to be there. So some parts are going to be majorly related about your thinking and the computation part. So all of that we are going to be covering as a part of your high level. So high level is not about implementation. Implementation is only your low level. High level is going to be majorly about your theory part. So when you're going to be learning about how you can go ahead and provide implementation, there comes your low level design. All right. Do we need to remember the theory? I'll say you need, I know it's too much theory, but you know, why I write a lot of theory here in the class, my main reason is like I talk about myself here. If I read 10 lines out of 10, I can remember only 6. In the interviews, I can speak only 2. So considering all of that, I'm writing a lot and you should be knowing, because firstly, let us say I am talking about your tier 2 and tier 3 companies. So they will straight away ask you questions. Tell me about singleton design pattern. Or they will ask you, tell me the design, what and all design patterns are. Then you will have to classify. Like I remember in 3 or 4 interviews, I have told them the different types of design patterns. And almost like whatever interviews I have given, right, in every interview, I have explained them singleton design pattern. Recently, I gave one interview for the internal transfer in Microsoft. There also, that guy was asking me about singleton, and that is how it is there. And even in my actual interview in the Microsoft, that time also singleton was asked. So that is how it is usually going to be there. For SDE1, do interview ask questions on design principles and design pattern. So Nitesh, I don't remember which class it was there, but I spoke about the different types of patterns, the different types of classification. So if you are from 0 to 2 years of experience, in such a case, 30% is going to be your system design, 70% is going to be your coding. And trust me, even in my organization, I am in touch with a lot of managers and all, and I keep on asking them, since I teach it, right? So I keep on asking them, that tell me what questions do you ask, or do you ask questions? So they say even with the campus hires, they do ask questions on system design. And again, you know, I'll tell you one more thing here. So from 0 to 5 years of experience, they will majorly ask you questions on low level design. After 5 years of experience, they will be having more questions on your high level. That is how pattern which I have seen. Circuit breaker design pattern. It must be a name of some other, like even I don't know, I'm just Googling it out because I do not know like by this particular name. But if I will know, I will be able to explain. Okay, so circuit breaker is actually going to be a part of your microservices. It's not going to be a part of system design. And since I do not know about microservices yet, That was the reason I didn't know about this term. Naresh, I'll try to cover, but thing is, here we have, like, firstly, my major initial, what I was thinking that I'll cover each and everything. So, what we will be doing. Firstly, my major intention for this course is we will cover whatever is required from the interview perspective. At the end, if we will have time, then we will be covering remaining ones. Does that make sense? Like, I'll be covering all those design patterns that no matter which interview you are giving, you will be able to answer all of the questions. And no, circuit breaker design pattern does not come as a part of our program. Like, we are not teaching microservices here. In my last interview, they asked 6 ways to implement singleton. Then they modified the requirement and asked to implement. I only studied singleton. That happens with the singleton. So I will tell you all the different ways to implement singleton. Okay. So in tomorrow's class, we are going to be starting with our singleton. So that is where firstly I'll tell you what the singleton is and how you can implement the same. Also, I'll tell you what all are the challenges which we face in your singleton. All right. Any question, anyone? If no questions, then we'll be closing the session here. And I'll be uploading the notes afterwards, after converting it to PDF. All right. All right, guys, no questions. Then we'll be closing the session. Yeah, I'll upload the notes now only. Like, just allow me maximum 5 minutes. I'll upload. And happy weekend, everyone. We'll be meeting tomorrow at 8 p.m. Bye-bye. Good night.